What is up, everyone? JD here. I hope you're all doing well today. Today, I'm really excited to bring you my full review of the BHQ Exclusive Spyderco Shaman with the coated M4 blade. Not going to bring the box out here. If you're familiar with Spyderco, their boxes are all the same. You get a box, you get an information card, and you get a tiny, teeny little Spyderco sticker, and it's very basic, which is great because I don't really want them to spend a ton of money on the package. I'd rather them spend the money on the knife and get me as much knife as you can for the money. Having said that, what we'll be doing today is going through specs, comparison knives for size reference with profile comparison so you have a good reference for how this will carry, thoughts and impressions of this variant, and alternative recommendations. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So the BHQ Shaman has a 3.61 inch coated M4 blade with 4.7 inch micarta handles, overall length 8.31 inches. So this is a long knife and its claimed weight is 4.9 ounces. That could be the weight that the last one came in at. I'm not quite sure. So let's go ahead and check that. Okay, so I guess 5 ounces, maybe the coating is adding a little bit of weight. I think the satin version that I also own came in at 4.9 because I think the website was saying like 5.6, but I don't know if that's the base Shaman or not. All right, let's go ahead and run through some size comparisons really quick. First up, I'm going to bring out the Spyderco Yojimbo 2, and you can see that the Shaman is bigger. And just for fun, I am going to bring out the M4 Blade HQ with the satin finish with the fat carbon scales. I know that they're the same size, but I thought it'd be cool to see what a set of skinny scales look like versus what the contoured factory scales look like on this knife. So hopefully that helps you, and it is interesting to see the difference between the skinny scales and the coated. I almost took the Shaman back. So let me get these out of the way. We'll go ahead and grab the crossbar lock knives that I like to use for this particular size comparison. First up is going to be the BHQ Exclusive Benchmade Bug Out, and I will bring out the SIG K320 made by Hogue so you get an idea just how big this Shaman is. And I do like that comparison against that SIG, so be on the lookout for something coming out for that. So hopefully this size reference has helped you. Let's go ahead and move these crossbar lock knives out of the way. And last but not least, we'll bring out a couple of budget knives. First up is going to be the QB Royal, as I whiffed there on my first attempt to front flip today. And the Buck 110, which is going to be longer, but it's going to be more slender overall. Let me go ahead and get these budget knives out of the way. Next, what we'll be doing is going ahead and showing a profile comparison so you can see what a stock Shaman thickness looks like compared to some of these other knives that we've had out here. So here you can see that the QB Royal is still thicker. So this is impressive thickness. And instead of the bug out, I'm going to bring the SIG K320 out here so you can see the K320 is thicker at the top of the knife, but it is going to be thinner at the bottom. So you have that V shape that you have going on the SIG, which really does help with the ergos, which I think is very interesting. We will bring out the Yojimbo 2, which is also comparable to the Para 3. Couldn't think of the name for a minute. You can see here the Shaman is a little bit thicker, and just out of curiosity for my own sake, what does it look like against those skinny scales? So skinny scales, yeah, that's about even. There's a little bit of contouring going on around the edge there, but that's about even. So as you may or may not know, the base Shaman comes with S30V. You can get it coated or uncoated. It comes with a smooth contour G10 scale that is contoured exactly like this micarta scale on here. So the difference is you're getting a very nice coated M4 steel blade. Spyderco's come with a amazing factory edge on them, and their heat treat is renowned for how well they're done. The micarta on here is still smooth with just a tiny bit of roughage. I have done a forced patina on this particular model, which will be coming out after this one goes up, and it'll show you what it looked like with the dry scales on there. But I do like the way that it kind of has like splotchiness to it, just kind of like a natural look patina to it. And you do get a 4-way reversible pocket clip that is not deep carry, but if you're working with your gloves and you don't want to go all the way down in your pocket. That actually is nice because it leaves all of this out of the pocket. You get a nice black back spacer. I believe that is G10 if I recall correctly. Could be, let me see, I might have a magnet here somewhere. Let's see if I can get it where there's no, oh no, it is a metal back spacer. That sucker sucked right on up. I love the ergos of the Shaman, so much so that I had, for about a year, I had a Spyderco PM2, and I had the Flytanium G10 scales on there, which are contoured, which really transformed the knife greatly from the flat scales. But I found that I really like the size of this particular knife. It feels really comfortable in hand. Using that finger choil gives you tons of room to move around. You can move back if you have to do, a little bit of a more hard use type grip. Maybe you're chopping something. I'm really not coming up with anything at the top of my head. Maybe if you're whittling some wood, you want to move back. But I would think that in the choked up position, I feel like you have more control when you're trying to do something like that. So this might be, maybe for puncture tasks. Maybe you're trying to get into a piece of really thick cardboard to break it down, so you want to move back. But the way that they make this finger choil, you really don't need it. You get a ton of purchase grip. You get security with that nub there. It's going to keep you from rolling forward. It has really aggressive jimping here. So I really do like this knife a lot. What would be some alternative recommendations? I've done so many of these, guys. I'm not going to go through the whole gamut of why I think this is one of Spyderco's greatest knives. I just love the size of it, the hard use, the reinforced tip out on the blade because of the thicker blade stock, but it has a really thin edge because it's such a tall flat grind, and they do such a good job grinding it down out towards the tip and down towards the blade's edge. It's just a great knife, good coating, good action. You get really good action considering it is on phosphor bronze washers, which I really do like a lot for a hard use knife because it's not going to be as susceptible to dirt and debris. So I did go over a little bit of some of the highlights of what I like about this knife. The ergos, the hard use mentality, very, very friendly sized knife for the weight. I feel like under 5 ounces, it's still going to carry relatively light in the pocket, which I do like a lot about this knife. So it's easy for me to make the recommendation for this. Alternative recommendations. This knife is not cheap. Even in the S30V variant, you're still going to be spending over $200. That's not to say that I think it is overpriced. I see a lot of people say the Shaman's overpriced because you used to be able to get this for $180 to $190. Inflation has happened. Cost of materials has happened. Spyderco wants to retain the employees that are doing such a good job with the edges and the build quality. So you have to be competitive with salary to retain those folks. When I checked today, I couldn't believe it. They still had them in stock. But by the time this video goes up, I imagine it'll be sold out. Now, let me get back to the alternate recommendations that I was about to say a moment ago. Now, considering the price of the base Shaman, let's just call it $210, you can get the S30V variant of the Hogue SIG K320, which has S30V, excellent ergos, and now with the aluminum scales coming in at under $180, a fantastic knife, very compelling. Your differences are going to be the locks. I mean, obviously the blade shape a little bit, the ergos a little bit. I'm talking about the significant differences. You're going to have a compression lock that's going to lock up at around 30 to 40% on average with the compression lock, whereas with the crossbar lock, it's locking up 100% of the back of the knife, but you have the Omega springs. I have had hit or miss experiences with the Omega springs. So it's 50-50. I've had 2 break. I've had 2 that are lasting with no issues whatsoever. I have backup Omega springs, and I have aftermarket Omega springs on my bug out, which lends to a little bit more strength. They have just a tiny bit more resistance when you're engaging it and disengaging it. Engaging, I mean when you're actually trying to flip it out. But they have held up now 8+ months without breaking with no issues, and I do have backup Omega springs because I worry about if they're going to break. I have not had my X-Tau as long, but these are doing very well. These are the lighter springs. I still need to take this apart and put the heavier springs in there so I can see how those feel. So that's the differences with these two. Now, let's say you're on a budget and you can't really afford a $200 knife. What would get you relatively close to the experience of this knife? One that I really like, that is a good recommendation for a good knife that's very well built, is going to be the Civivi Conspirator. It's going to have a very similar attitude as far as the knife is concerned. It's not going to have it as aggressive as a drop point, but it is going to have that tall, flat grind like you find on the Shaman, and it's going to have very neutral ergos. This reminds me very much of what the Shaman feels like with skinny scales on it, but the Shaman does have a tad bit more contouring, so the ergos feel a little bit better, and you have the forward finger choil, which gets you right up on the blade's edge. So there's a little bit of difference there, but this will get you really close to that experience because it does have the same type of thickness that you're finding on the Spyderco. So that is one that I would recommend. The other one that I would recommend is actually within Spyderco's own lineup. You can actually get, and I know this is the Andella, but you can get the Native 5 with the FRN and the Spy 27 for around $100, and it's going to give you the exact same experience because the Shaman and the Native share very similar design cues. So very similar blade shapes, very similar ergos. It's just going to be a back lock instead of a compression lock. But it is a really good blade, good ease of sharpening, great edge retention, good corrosive resistance, a great steel for an EDC knife. So that would be my alternative recommendation. That one's going to be coming out of Seki City, Japan. All in all, do I recommend this knife? Absolutely. This was, when I first started getting into knives and learning about them at great detail, one of the grail knives for me. I've now owned 3. I have 2 that I have kept in my inventory. This one here is going to remain in this form. This is a sprint run knife. I'm going to leave the pocket clip alone for now. I'm going to leave the scales alone for now. And I'm not going to do anything to modify this too much. Will I use it? Absolutely. Now, I say for now because I also have the Spyderco Smock, which started life exactly like this. Coated M4 blade. It had the diamond nitrate coating that they do in Taiwan. I really like that coating a lot. I wish Spyderco would just switch over to that. I don't know if it's more expensive, but I would love that. But it had the Jade G10 scales on there that I swapped out for the fat carbon. I just couldn't resist it. It looks so much better than those Jade G10 scales did. But this one here, because I do have the satin version that I was able to throw the dark matter, couldn't think of the name, dark matter fat carbon scales on. I was able to throw the CME from OCD on here, which makes this really easy to operate, and especially from a left-handed perspective. And I have the MXG coated deep carry pocket clip on there. I like the Lynch and the MXGs very much. I alternate between the two of them, try to sport both. This knife is highly recommendable. I do like it a lot. If it is still available, I know that Blade HQ has a layaway program. When I was trying to get my very first grail knife, which was the ZTO 562, I used that layaway. I didn't have a ton of money. I was trying to still grow the channel, and I was spending money on other knives, and it was easier for me to break it up over 4 payments over 4 months, and I could wait. It really didn't matter to me. No, I'm sorry, 3 payments over 3 months, which made it easier to choke down the price initially. So there is that I love Blade HQ does, and I hope that they continue to do that. They're very inconsistent with which knives they allow you to do that with. This one here had that option underneath when I went back to check. If you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor, leave a like. Consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed. Don't forget to leave a like for today's video. It does help the channel. Thanks for all the support for everyone that is already subscribed, and I hope all of you have a fantastic week. Until next time, peace.